and thank you so much for joining us. So many of you every day, 4 times per day, join us for the Apnu+Afc live coverage of the national recount. And you can join us now not only on Facebook, but you can join us on YouTube as well. And we're tracking the latest with the national recount. As you know, we would have passed stage 1, which is the tabulation exercise, which happened at the Otterchong Conference Center at Liliendal. Stage 2 is the submission of the report by the Chief Elections Officer, which was done. And stage 3 is what we're currently engaging, the discussion of that report by the chairperson of GCOM, the Right Honorable Justice Claudette Singh and her colleagues, the fellow commissioners. We have been reliably informed that a meeting has been summoned to discuss that report, and they should be in that process even as we speak. The deadline for that process is tomorrow, the 16th day of June, when we should have a declaration, decision coming out of the chairperson, again, the Right Honorable Justice Claudette Singh. Again, according to the national recount order, it says for the first part that the matrices for the recount of the 10 electoral districts shall then be tabulated by the Chief Elections Officer and shall be submitted in a report together with a summary of the observation reports for each district to the Commission. The CARICOM scrutinizing team shall submit a report to the Commission which may include their observation, recommendations, and conclusions. And finally, the Commission shall, after deliberating on the report at paragraph 11, determine whether it should request the Chief Elections Officer to use the data compiled in accordance with paragraph 11 as the basis for the submission of a report on the Section 96 of the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 103. But before we get into other information coming out of the national recount, we want to start the day right. And that means we want to turn to an inspirational piece. And this is a song by our very own Melissa Van der Aar, Guyanese, and the title of which is These Ashes. Do enjoy.
What can I give you that they haven't taken? Where can you take me that I've never been? What can you show me that I've never seen before? You already know that my heart has been broken. I am afraid it'll happen again. 200 pieces of me lying on the floor. My life is a mess, but you said happiness can be mine. Be mine if I would just take your love in my heart. If I would just say what you say in me, Lord. My ashes are yours, let your beauty be mine. Put me back together, can you make me better? 'Cause I have nothing left worth holding on. I'm letting go. Jesus, I know you've heard all my excuses for drinking from wells that never satisfy, seeking for peace that can only be found in you. But it's so amazing how you never shun me. My sin is the reason you were crucified. If I compare you to them, I would be such a fool. My life is a mess, but you said happiness can be mine. Be mine if I would just take your love in my heart. If I would just say what you say in me, Lord. My ashes are yours, let your beauty be mine. Put me back together, can you make me better?
Welcome back. As you guys know, there are a lot of legal opinions surrounding what the GCOM can and cannot do. And quite recently, my colleague Andrew Weeks sat down with the Attorney General, Minister of Legal Affairs, Minister Basil Williams, to walk us through some of that kind of reasoning, some of that legal opinion that is out there. And this is their engagement quite recently.
All right, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome back to the Apnu+Afc TV. I'm here with Minister Basil Williams, the Minister of Legal Affairs and Attorney General. Minister Williams, thank you for coming on Apnu TV this afternoon. It's good to have you.
No problem, Andrew. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Sir, there is a quote in the Kaicho papers today, and it says this, and I want to answer the question when I read the quote to you. It says that the Chief Elections Officer has acted outside of the Gazette order on the 4th of May 2020. Section 12 of the order requires the CEO to submit a report on the tabulation of the recount of the votes in the 10 districts together with a summary of the observation report for each electoral district. He is not required to pronounce on these observations, more so since the recount is not an investigation. The conclusion drawn by the CEO in this report submitted to the Commission yesterday are in excess of what he is required to do under the law. They are groundless, since no requirement or investigation rather has been conducted or concluded in the allegation which have been recorded in the observation reports and for which no credible evidence has been provided. Your legal opinion on this is very important, because what the order said and what the order does not say. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, with specific reference to the action of the CEO, he was acting under paragraph 12 of the order number 60 of 2020, made under Article 162(1)(b) of the Constitution in Section 22 of the Election Laws Amendment Act number 15 of 2000.
Right.
So that order was gazetted. It's now law, and it binds everyone in Guyana. So acting under paragraph 12, the CEO was required to do the tabulation from the matrices of the recount submitted to him on the one hand, and also to summarize, make a summary of the observation reports for each of the 10 electoral districts. But I think what the PPP are overlooking is that he was to do these things not in mutually exclusively one to the other, but he in fact was to then assimilate them in a report, and they missed out on the third component of paragraph 12 in a report. When one has recourse to the Oxford Dictionary of English, you will find that the definition of a report is that when someone gives a written account of what he has observed, done, and or investigated, so that tabulation on the one hand, observation report on the next, he has to do a synthesis for his report. And in that, he would have brought his mind to bear about his observations of what he has seen in the tabulation on the one hand and the observation reports on the other, and pursuant also to his investigations. I don't know what they're saying about he didn't investigate anything or whatever, because as I've been arguing, the self-same order gives the Commission jurisdiction, and obviously its employees, jurisdiction to make an assessment and to resolve irregularities, anomalies, and discrepancies in order to deliver a credible election.
That's right.
And that's in one of the paragraphs of the order. So they have to deliver an impartial, free, fair, and credible election. And they must have, the PPP signed on to that. They've signed on. In fact, the commissioner, Gunraj, boasted that he was the one who did the order. And I know for sure when they went to the AG chambers to consult the CPC, Chief Parliamentary Council, they delayed the meeting saying Mr. Nandalal was expected to attend. So both of them have more than passing knowledge of the contents of the order. Yet they were trying to resile from the provisions in the order. From the outset, they tried to do that, escape the requirements of the order. And if it were for them, the CARICOM team would not have come together, because about 14 days before, they raised this argument that they only had 14 days to the 30th of April, if you recall, and that Parliament had to be reconvened, or a new Parliament convened by the 4th month, which would have made it the 1st of April. So if that argument had carried, the CARICOM team would not have come. It would have been senseless, because you've seen how many days it took to complete this recount exercise. But we had to intervene to show that that was not true. And in fact, they took 5 months to reconvene Parliament at one time, and the court had empowered them in that regard. They had argued before the court that the provision wasn't mandatory, it was directory. And they kept raising all kinds of issues that GCOM couldn't deal with those irregularities and anomalies, when in fact the provision was there in order for them to do so.
But Minister, we also said in the same show, and we have shown the audience and the viewers, listeners, that there is two ANIL. One ANIL says this, and the other ANIL says that. One ANIL says that GCOM has all the powers to make all the rules. They can come up with their own rules and their own, and all of that, and saying that the GCOM has omnious powers. But when GCOM makes a decision and it is not in their favor, they ain't got them power to do that. You can't do that.
Yeah, well, that's it. They flip-flop all the time, you know. In fact, it's reminiscent what they say now, that the CEO has acted ultra-virus and unconstitutionally and all of that. It's reminiscent of the allegation they made when they ran to the court, said they were bringing a contempt motion against the returning officer for the electoral district number 4, Mr. Mingo. As you know, that was thrown out. They said had to withdraw because there was no evidence. And that's their modus operandi. And equally, this would be the same thing, because on the proper apprehension of paragraph 12, it is clear that in submitting the ballot aspect and the observation aspect, the CEO, in making his report, must say what he observed.
Yes.
And what he had investigated and what he done. So it's erroneous for them to contend that he couldn't express a view, an opinion, or any judgment. That's exactly what a report requires, not some robotic transmission of the two aspects that he was supposed to investigate and compile and then send to the commission. He had to give a report, and so their contention won't go very far. So we're very clear that the CEO acted within the ambit and the provisions contemplated by paragraph 12. In fact, when you look at paragraph 12, there's nothing prohibiting him. There's nothing in paragraph 12 that says he can't give a view, he can't express an opinion, etc. You understand the point I'm making to you? So they are trying to import into the provisions what really is not there.
And Minister, another thing I want you to comment on is, now that you raised the point, there's no evidence for Mingo, based on the ruling of the court. Now, what does that say to the last declaration that was made by Mr. Mingo? How powerful that has, and what role does that have to play in this whole situation? With now we have the recount report from the CEO. How does that coincide with one another? Does it still stand? Does the last declaration still stand?
No, well, let's say this. The PPP decided to constitute Mr. Mingo and set him up as their beaten boy. You know, I was there the morning when they invaded the Ashman Center, despite GCOM's ruling that any delegation was limited to 3 persons.
Yes.
They were there, they turned up in their numbers. I actually got up and pointed it out to them and they had left. But then they returned subsequently. And as you know, they were trashing around the place, etc. And I suspect that what might have operated in the mind of the return officer was to, you know, completely recount and move on. And he forfeited to have done that, but they challenged it in the court. The Lord Chief Justice found that he hadn't completed the ascertainment of the votes under Section 84, and she quashed what he had done and sent him back. She told him, though, that he could adopt his own procedure, also that he could decide whether he was restarting the count, picking up where he left off, or he was going to start from all over. And also that he could also put up the SOP on the screen, each SOP,
Yes.
and they proceeded. And as you know, he completed it, and he made a declaration, which was submitted to the CEO. That declaration was never challenged by the PPP or any contesting political party or anyone. So when they're saying that he had this fraudulent declaration, it's pure propaganda. Where is it? They never challenged it. So it was sent there, and if it weren't challenged, obviously, it couldn't be invalid. And if they're saying that during the recount, Mingo's numbers, etc., I don't know how they're going to make that determination and against what. Because the only numbers that are relevant are GCOM's numbers, not the PPP's numbers, not the APNU AFC numbers. The GCOM's numbers, just like the GCOM's SOPs, and the same thing with the SORs. So for you to say that Mingo's has some fraudulent activity, how do you assess that? And that's why when you see how the Lord Chief Justice dealt with the application for contempt, which was a malicious recourse to the courts and abuse of its process, forfeiting to raise an allegation that Mingo had abused and had not conformed to the Lord Chief Justice order. And it is a serious thing.
Serious indeed.
Because that one could say that actually caused CARICOM, the president and leader of the opposition, to seek another recourse. But what that effectively did was to prevent GCOM from acting on 10 legitimate declarations. Because I challenged the PPP to show me where the declaration of Mr. Mingo was rendered invalid by any court, other than their own thoughts. Because you remember when the recount started, the publication of their statement opposed, they pulled them down hurriedly.
Yeah, changing it every second.
Exactly.
Yes.
So Mingo's numbers could only be assessed in terms of Mingo's numbers themselves, but not against what the PPP has or what any other contested political party has. And it might have been unfair to Mr. Mingo, and he might have been vindicated by the throwing out of these allegations, false allegations. I mean, those false allegations contaminated every allegation made against him by the PPP.
Thank you, Minister. Another thing I wanted to get your opinion on is the CARICOM report is going to be out very soon. How do you see that report complementing or not complementing Mr. Lowenfield's report?
No, but it's not a question of whether it complements or not. You would recall that CARICOM was part and parcel of this entire exercise. Without them, there's no real recount because the role is to scrutinize the recount and make a report. So that has nothing to do with anyone else. They are making an independent report and directly to the commission. So now that the CEO has completed stage 2 and has gone to stage 3, having submitted his report to the commission, the orders, I think it's 13, paragraph 13.
I got it here. The
of the
CARICOM
ordering
scrutinizing team shall submit a report to the
directly
commission,
to the commission.
which may include their observation, recommendation, and conclusion.
Yes, but their report is there and it would be considered by the commission. But you would recall that with full knowledge of the stages that have to be gone through by GCOM in the process, the PPP ran out at the first stage and announced themselves to be the winners.
Yeah, that night.
And they did so oblivious of the fact and unconcerned that GCOM hadn't laid over, the scrutinizing team, rather, CARICOM scrutinizing team had not really laid over its report. You know?
But
So
they won.
that would have really rendered nugatory the whole exercise. So why was CARICOM here? And you see that act of running out,
Jumping the gun.
unconcerned about CARICOM and CARICOM report, just shows you the mindset of the PPP. They really don't hold no value in the contribution of CARICOM.
But true, Minister, because everybody wants to know.
And because I raised that, you
Yes.
see, he ran out back and say, well, yes, you know, no declaration was made.
Because everybody wants to know too, why is it that the PPP, I don't think everybody wants to know, but we know already. Why is it that the PPP is not looking at the order, the 4 stages, but just saying that they won?
Why is it they're not?
They're not observing, they just want cars out of sight. They're concerned about
No.
observation and scrutinize, and they got no time with that. That's coming the numbers.
Well, as I understand it,
Yeah.
they were somewhat disappointed and taken aback when the leader of the opposition agreed to total recount. They wanted, as I understand
Region
it,
4 alone.
a Region 4 account alone.
Yes.
And they were appalled when they learned that Jack Dio had signed on to a total national recount.
Right.
And from that time, they set out to undermine the process. When you hear them talking, you would never believe that there was an order that they put together, you know, and that order covered most of the situations that they were saying didn't exist. GCOM had no power to. In fact, I had to remind them that they were signatories to that order is lawful.
Yeah.
And I've had to do it on several occasions. So that's how they are. And you notice they focus of being only on the recount. Yet, it is a clear provision in the order that they must have these observation reports, recording in an observation report form. And those reports are without the ballot box report, that you know the contents of the ballot box and you enter it in a report. So they cater for those instances like what has happened, those irregularities and anomalies,
Yes.
grave irregularities for you to have 41 ballot boxes without the statutory documents that would enable you to validate the ballot count. Because you see, the exercise is not the ballots that come out from the ballot box. It's the circumstances surrounding how the ballots got into the box in the first place. And that's why you have to have the exercise of looking at the credibility of the count. You know? So they feel they could keep fooling the Guyanese people run out, but they had the numbers, you know? They had the numbers, the highest numbers in the recount. When, upon a proper examination, one would find that you couldn't validate a large proportion of the ballots in those boxes.
Well,
In fact, it was so widespread that you couldn't
over
have
10,000 votes.
it's widespread. It's more than 10,000.
Well, in region 4 alone of these
The
coasts.
total of all the regions, it was widespread.
Widespread, indeed. Yeah.
And one couldn't, a voter would never say that that's what they did and what they expected. It affected the integrity of the entire elections and the credibility. So hundreds of thousands of votes.
There's also the call for a null and void of these elections. Do you see that? Do you concede to that call as well?
Well, the GCOM, this process can't nullify, and people shouldn't be misled. That's the province of the court. What the order provides for is in paragraph 14, is for GCOM on receipt of the CEO's report to deliberate upon it, and then make a determination at the end of their deliberations. So whether they could use any data from his report as a basis for continuing on, for him to make a report under Section 96 now of the Representation of the People Act. So it's clear that Section 14 gives GCOM a discretion to either find that they don't have any basis upon which they could send to the CEO for him to make a report on the Section 96 of the Representation of the People Act. As even as it's the same thing, you know, as what the CEO said, that when you look at all the widespread irregularities, anomalies, and discrepancies, you'll be unable to make a determination. It's more or less the same thing in the province of the commission. You know, so there are two options there.
So, Minister, another thing that persons want to know out there is what would be the outcome of these DROs who were part of the whole voting process, of part of the whole election process, if charges should come to them for these missing documents. How is the Attorney General's office looking at all these?
Well, you know, people confuse the Attorney General's office in these Westminster model type constitution countries with that of the Attorney General in America. And those Attorneys General in America, they have a criminal jurisdiction. We don't. We are largely civil. In our countries, you have a DPP, who is the person that has the custody and control of all prosecutions in Guyana. So we are not the ones that direct criminal charges, etc.
Are you seeing that coming down the line?
Well, that's a matter for GCOM, because it would be for GCOM to be the complainant in these matters.
Finally, Mr. Attorney General, the chairman has to make a big decision in terms of how these elections will be determined. You don't have to give an opinion in the chairman's mind because you don't know what's in there as yet. But how do you see this playing out from the chairman's perspective?
Well, from the chairman's perspective, as you said, not even the devil knows what's in a man's mind. But I have known the Madam Chair for maybe all my professional life in the courts, and she has always had the respect of the practicing bar, and she's always had my respect in particular. And as you know, she She earned that sobriquet of Iron Lady because she was always a very serious person when approached her for job. She's very experienced, and certainly, as I had said before, she actually fitted the description and the criteria for the chair of GCOM, because she has wide experience in these electoral matters anyway, and she has the courage to make decisions, and I believe that she will act fairly, as she's always done, and so I don't have that type of fear, because as a judge she's accustomed to acting fairly and impartially.
All right. We are speaking with the Minister of Legal Affairs and Attorney General, Mr. Bassel Williams, giving his opinion on these attacks on the CEO, the Commissioner Strictly, and the party. Mr. Bassel Williams, any closing thoughts that you want to?
Well, look, let me say this. We had a government that was there for 23 years. The government reached its nadir, and they contested against a party that was in government for, let us say, 5 years, even though they tried to interfere with the tenure with the treacherous Sharon Das Prasad. But notwithstanding those setbacks, this government under President David Arthur Granger started a transformation of Guyana that was a wonder to the world, that it is a wonder to the world, all the world. Our profile has been lifted. Guyanese were proud of saying they were Guyanese again, anywhere they were. People were respecting us, We have the policies that we have engendered to deal with all Guyanese, and not just a class of Guyanese. The physical transformation, the questions on education, the questions to deal with social cohesion, to unite this country, unite the people of this country. I mean, when you look at all of these things that we have done, well, there was no doubt that the Guyanese people would have been ready, willing, and able to give President Granger another term and his team. The PPP, on the other hand, past masters at these electioneering habits, knew that people weren't going to come out and vote for them. Look on it, I'm saying on the East Coast, that was highly mobilized with AP and UFC, as you all see, highly mobilized. And it's clear that their traditional supporters, some are coming over to us, and some were not going to come out to vote. And so the PPP knew they had to resort to all kinds of devices. And so I am not surprised when you went to the boxes, the discoveries that are being made. I'm not surprised, I'm telling you quite honestly.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Minister. We'll leave it here. Stay tuned, we'll be right back after these messages.
And welcome back. That was Attorney General Mr. Bassel Williams and Minister of Legal Affairs, with our very own Mr. Andrew Weeks, walking us through several important issues in the national recount process, which has led us to this point. And currently where we are, we can tell you that the Chief Elections Officer, well, firstly, the tabulation process, phase 1 of the national recount, has been completed. As you know, the Chief Elections Officer has submitted his report to the GCOM commissioners and the GCOM chair, Madam Justice Claudette Singh, and we're in the third phase where they're considering that report and all its implications. And at the end of that exercise, which should come to an end tomorrow, we know that the chairperson of GCOM, Madam Justice Scarlett Singh, will make a statement, will make a declaration of some sort, and the nation anxiously awaits that. Quite unfortunately, we're out of program time for this morning, but we hope that you would have gleaned something from the information we would have provided. We'll see you back at 12 o'clock where we have our next update. Bear in mind, today is a national day of prayer locally, so we invite you wherever you are at home here in Guyana or in the diaspora to find some time to pray for our beloved country. Particularly at home here, we're going to be spending between 10 hours this morning and 12. 10 o'clock this morning and 12 p.m. To be in intense prayer. And so we invite you guys to be part of that, and you can spend any part of the day praying for our beloved nation. We're going to see you guys right back here at 12 o'clock. We're going to have some additional information and updates for you. Thank you so much again for joining us. See you at 12. Stay safe.